welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
Man, Ed, we're going to look at one today that was one of my favorite comics whenever I bought it as a kid. But before we do, where can people find your work?
Patreon.com/Ed Piskor is where I'm serializing my current Red Room comics project. Murder on the Dark Web for fun and profit. I like to think that there will be some McFarlane toys of these characters once this thing hits print. $3 get you the archive. I have almost 2 complete stories up there as we speak. And new strips are going to come out every Tuesday. But it's for the early adopter because it's going to see print in 2021.
I am plugging Street Angel Deadly Squirrel Live, the Image Comics collection of my superhero ninja on a skateboard. Perfect for fans of any superhero comics, any age, I mean. These are perfect for all age readers. And I want to clear up any confusion people have. These 2 collections of Street Angel, no overlap between them. So if you have one of these books and not the other, you need them both on your shelf.
Jim, this hit a lot of triggers, a lot of buttons for me, man. Took me back to a place in time. I think McFarlane was one of the early creators who I was able to identify by just aesthetics alone, and I was a Hulk reader, dude. So I followed that guy wherever he went.
This is such an awesome period, too. You know, McFarlane having history with both of these characters. I loved this Gray Hulk. This is probably a book I bought within the first year of when I started reading comics. And so to see McFarlane doing, I too was a Hulk reader and loved the Hulk. To see him back to the Hulk and then Spider-Man, this was like just the perfect comic book. I love the cover with green logo, has to be a little bit of a nod to the Hulk along with the green tongue. Acts of Vengeance. This was probably one of the first crossovers that I came in contact with as a reader. And it was where all the heroes and the villains, basically the villains shifted to different heroes. The idea being, you know, they won't know how to stop me. They haven't fought me before. I'm not their arch villain. We're going to dig in a second. But before we get inside of this, I want to just make a note. In 2012, Heritage Auctions sold the original art to this cover, $657,250. I'm going to say that again. $657,000 for the cover art to this comic book.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
But this is Cartoonist Kayfabe. So let's break a little bit of Kayfabe. Because I just had a Sotheby's thing, right? Obviously not nearly that much. But when you have something like that, a different kind of person comes into your life and lets you know how certain things go. And the insider trading, and I'm not saying that this was done, but I'm breaking kayfabe, talking about how you can make yourself an art career in that space. And if you're willing to forego, okay, I'll take my work for example, right? It would have been impossible with the show that I was a part of because there was some Tupac stuff and Biggie Smalls. So I wouldn't be able to make the headlines because the amount of money that I have in my coffers wouldn't equal what people could buy for that. But if I would be willing to potentially sacrifice the 10% that goes to Sotheby's, if I am the one who, through a proxy bidder, buys my own thing back, and I sacrifice that 10% and buy my own thing back, the the thing in the news that could pop up the next day is this Ed Piskor piece of artwork sold for $120,000 or right. Something like that. So you hear those numbers, but there's a lot of insider trading and shell games that go on, and there's legal stuff in place, but like you can't stop proxy bidders. And when you see those numbers and when you see it in an article with these new people that came into my life that kind of dropped the science, like, you want me to be a proxy bidder? I sort of feel like I know some inside shit these days.
That's so eye-opening, man. Everything is just corrupt.
You make your story, you know? Like, so you could I could have created a situation where Ed Piskor artwork sells for this amount of money, but I had some other dude buy the shit or something, you know, like that. That is a possibility, and there has been art auctions that have worked that way in the past.
That's funny, man. I was going to just do a joke about how he could get a sixth of a Barry Bonds baseball after this. All right, let's dig in. So this is McFarlane's last Amazing Spider-Man. You know, there's a big hiatus after this until, Spider-Man, adjectiveless Spider-Man #1 comes out. And I guess I don't know how big that hiatus is, but this is January 1990, and that's a 1991 book.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe takes a year off. No McFarlane for a while, and I dug his stuff, and it was like I was just getting into comics. I like this guy, and this is it. But man, it's a good swan song.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But he can't draw a very good Sebastian Shaw. I'll say that right now, man.
Well, he can draw a good Hulk.
Yes.
That's a nice opening if you're a Hulk fan. Very cool. I liked the Gray Hulk too, by the way, because when I started reading, he was gray. He was Mr. Fix-It.
Yes.
And I thought that was a really cool. I was on board for all of it. Jeff Purvis was drawing it at the time that I started up, a little bit after McFarlane, but it was great to see the McFarlane version in action because I knew him from like Marvel's, the Marvel Universe. There was a great McFarlane Hulk for the entry, and it's this Hulk. So it was kind of cool to see him doing it here. And there's your poorly drawn Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah, it's like, it's an okay drawing of a guy, I guess, or whatever, who's wearing magenta pants and whatnot. But we know what Shaw looks like, and that just looks like some random ass bad guy.
Well, I'll say this: as this issue progresses, there are a lot of unattractive characters in this issue. McFarlane does some really cool stuff, but drawing pretty people isn't necessarily his forte.
What he does draw, though, is a cool drawing on every freaking page, and that is exactly what I responded to at this very time. It's what I responded to as he progressed further on the Hulk and made me a big fan because I like the big moments. As a little kid, I want to see Spider-Man doing some rad shit. Fuck your pathos. Fuck your Peter Parker, Mary Jane bullshit. Let me see this Spider-Man doing some things.
I love the way he would put Spider-Man like in shadows or receding into shadows. I thought that was always a really great treatment. And the other thing we should mention from a storytelling point of view, in this crossover, for whatever reason, Spider-Man has cosmic powers. He's basically just super powerful throughout this. So we're going to see a Spider-Man that is pretty atypical for Spider-Man, normal character. He can do all kinds. He can fly, for example. It's very weird.
Yeah, it's so stupid because it's Deus Ex Machina powers. So whenever he needs to do anything, there's a power for it. This is so, and the powers are making this happen. So he could just think, and the webs come out of the thing. But that's like so impotent. It's like party poppers or something,
That's more of that shadow though. The Spider-Man coming out of shadows that. Man, I dug that stuff. He just looked he made Spider-Man look like such a badass.
The only thing I didn't like about his Spider-Man was the profile. There's something about that I think is weak.
You know what's funny
he's got a glass jaw.
I don't love some of his designs on Spider-Man now. Like when I was a kid, this was my Spider-Man. But now I've seen so many more Spider-Mans and different eye shapes and things. Like this is not my favorite design for Spider-Man now, 30 years of reading later. But yeah, I was totally on board. Little joke about the Tim Burton Batman movie.
It was in the air, man.
Yeah, I
Still
guess
Valley Iron Men, Pee Wee football team. They all had that shit shaved in their head.
I don't know why my covers are my. I guess it's because it's facing this ad page.
Yeah, look, man. Like we're both afflicted.
Yeah. That's exactly what this is because this is newsprint. If you used to read newspapers, your fingers would get all black at the end. It's the same deal. It's all this ink on this ad page. But here you see him flying, and it's funny to see McFarlane draw like Spider-Man flying because it's sort of right. It's not totally right.
A little Macy's Day Parade.
But I dig it. I love that scene of New York City at night. Looks really cool. Yeah, speaking to your something cool on every page, you can see McFarlane has that vision.
He doesn't take shorts either, man. Like just like all that mania of that pen line was super important to me. And the way I drew Spider-Man changed immediately after I saw his take.
So here we are out to dinner with his buddies, and this is what I'm referring to. These are not good-looking people. The proportions here, if you saw this full face, would be nuts.
What he does to Mary Jane, like let's bust out Spider-Man 1, and when he has these long, narrow panels that pushes her eyes like close together, but like these girls, that looks like dreadnoughts from freaking a Cobra.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Although I wasn't complaining then and don't care too much now. Always weird to see the trade towers in these old 90s Marvel comics. Always strange. This is great, though. So he's on shoot early in the morning, and we see the Hulk entering New York, basically being dropped out of a helicopter. No parachute on that Hulk, but his hair is flying up in the wind.
I love this sequence.
Me too.
And what's interesting, he'll have his big image on every page, but on some pages, it feels like he chooses the wrong panels to make the big one. Because, he's going to... No parachute, like you said, right? That dude's going to have a massive impact. And it's like, we don't even get it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even realize that doesn't happen. That's no Michael Golden Spider-Man Hulk fight.
And there's going to be an impact from outer space, and it's going to be what I thought we were going to go to, but there's a second one. Is just like it's a super tiny panel.
And Hulk using just conveniently located cars or ambulance. I think this is the second ambulance that. This is the first ambulance that we see. There's going to be a second ambulance that shows up at a later point. But great stuff, man. This is what you want. You want Hulk and Spider-Man on the same page whenever you buy this comic.
Bless the Marvel method, Jimmy. Because if some writer's jerking off all over the page, we got to get into the heads of all these characters and we don't get like big poppy imagery. Like that's why you don't get this in comics anymore.
Yeah, you're
since
right.
Since it's a writer-driven medium in the mainstream space.
I remember I saw a thing and it was a Peter David script for Hulk for somebody. And it was like 3 pages, it was broke down. So it was like a piece of the script, but it was basically just, it's this 3-page fight scene. And there was a sentence, it was up to the artist to invent this. Like, yeah, whatever, Hulk and Spider-Man get together and fight. That would be what you would need. And then it's like, be inventive artist and think of something that looks really cool. And it's like, how about if I chuck an ambulance at him?
It creates so much respect and incentive for the artist to kind of show, improve, and do some stuff and actually add something, not just be a vestigial appendage to.
You can be very competitive whenever you're the one choreographing this fight scene.
Yeah.
And so here's the next ambulance. Basically, Hulk's surprised by how powerful Spider-Man is, and the sun's coming up because he didn't count on going from Vegas to the East Coast and losing a couple of hours. At this time, he turns into Bruce Banner when the sun comes up, so he realizes he's got to cut this short. Fortunately, there's always an ambulance around when you need one, and throws a shoulder into that and takes off.
McFarlane is a devotee of Katsuhiro Otomo. He's pasted backgrounds in behind his Spider-Mans and Spawn's as well, I believe. So that little light streak, I can't help but think that he was on the comp list for the epic Akira comics which were colored by Steve Olive, so like, because he didn't invent that little light streak.
Here's a nice piece of storytelling. You see a glimpse of the ambulance here. It's not just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
A little bit of a setup. As much setup as you need, probably more than you need. You wouldn't be too confused if you didn't see that, but why not have that panel connect to the next one? And then here's Bruce Banner in the streets of New York cursing the Hulk for, what have you gotten me into this time? It's always funny to me, Banner walking around in like the torn up jeans.
It works in NYC sometimes, man. Like you can see the stuff. His hair sucks.
I always loved this. The drawing, like the scribble in a notebook.
That to me feels like that would be exactly what a McFarlane doodle would look like when he's on the phone with Rob Liefeld or whatever.
That's funny. It makes me think of like Dan Clow's Pussy or something, where we get to see like the notebooks of young Dan Pussy drawing something in the notebooks. Shaw unimpressed with the Hulk so far.
Unimpressed drawing of Shaw as well.
Wonder what this page goes for, man.
Yeah.
That feels like a money shot kind of page. So they make plans to meet up the next night and fight this out.
Marvel now has a no smoking policy, but like, so I wonder how they photoshopped this out of the omnibus. And those are the shirts that were like that. McFarlane was like, I can't get a copy of a shirt.
That's hilarious. They refer to the cigarettes to his butts. He stole these butts out of his mom's purse.
Little Yancey Streeters.
All right. So again, this is what I wanted whenever I got this comic, man. Talk about a great 2-page spread of just these characters mixing it up. Very cool. Hulk looks like he's about the size of, I don't know, 3 or 4 story building in this first panel. Actually, if you're drawing things, this is a sectional perspective where basically you overlap characters to create that perspective. So Spider-Man's in the foreground, so Hulk's even bigger than he looks.
Right.
But more power to him, man. That's what I liked about McFarlane is if you had a Hulk, he wasn't the size of a truck, he's the size of a building. That kind of exaggeration was a big part of his appeal for me.
Another new power. You see what I mean? It's so stupid.
Yeah. And then these kids decide they're going to show up and help Spider-Man out. That's a mismatch.
I think McFarlane did a lot for the Spider-Man to get it back on track because
I think so,
his whole thing is like, let's get rid of that stupid black costume, and now you have this to do it. Like let's get rid of that. Like the guy has webs, could crawl on buildings. There's a part in here where Michelini, this flying without web lines is for the birds. What? What?
It's very true.
What happens if you go leave the compound and take off? Are you gonna be salty about that?
Yeah, this is when I always talk about how I hate Spider-Man, and it's for this kind of stuff. You're flying around and you're complaining about flying. I can't sympathize with you, man.
Yeah, they got pills for that.
This piece of bullpen bulletin is CBG Awards. The Comics Buyer's Guide used to do their annual awards, and if you would write in, like if you would submit an awards ballot, you would get a free copy of that issue. You know, whenever the awards came out, that was like my one CBG whenever I was a kid. But you know, McFarlane winning for best penciler and cover artist this year, not too surprising. But here we go. So whenever Spider-Man sees that Hulk is trying to scare off the kids, Spider-Man doesn't know it's just a scare tactic. He overreacts and punches him. And with that new power, he goes into orbit. And by the way, full moon.
Yes. I don't think there's ever not a full moon in a McFarlane comic.
Yeah, that circle's too powerful of a shape. I just loved this as a kid, man. Hulk up in outer space, and now he's trying to figure out like how he's gonna die up there.
Good little drawing. Like he looks like he's
Very
holding his
good.
breath.
I copied this drawing in my notebooks whenever I was a kid. Although this face is really strange. This is another one of those faces that, if you pulled back and took a look at that as a whole, there is some weird shit going on with that face.
There is, but there's also that lady from Throw Mama from the Train. So like, there might be precedent for that face.
All right. Ooh, rough tangent on the knee and the Earth.
Yes, sir.
So Spider-Man decides like he can't kill the Hulk. What's gonna happen? he's orbiting around the Earth. So he flies up and grabs him and brings him back down. And again, another one of those really cool shots where the Hulk is just the size of a building towering over Spider-Man. But since he saved his life, he won't kill him.
This is that weird thing that would happen sometimes with Marvel Method, where the artists are having a lot of fun like with their stuff, and it's like, oh shit, I gotta wrap this up in 2 pages. Oh no, like that's so abrupt.
You know, I think it is typical though. You're right. This is what would happen because like these issues weren't, you know, decompressed storytelling. It was
Right.
like you were mostly getting a full story experience, you know, in one of these issues, and so that did mean abrupt endings at times.
One of the things that McFarlane would be credited for, and that he would self-promote as being something he brought to the game, was like, they all dressed Mary Jane like she's from like the 50s and the 60s. And I'm like, have you ever seen a person in 1990 rocking that? I'm pretty observant of fashions and shit.
Mary Jane was like the thing that none of these artists could unlock for that reason. You know, like you want these guys to do fashion, like 90s fashion on a supermodel. That is not in their toolkit. It's a pretty interesting hand. Oh man.
Fun issue, man.
That is the send-off for McFarlane from Amazing Spider-Man, and it is a good issue.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
was one I was just delighted by at the time, and I still kind of enjoyed the flip through, the reread.
Look at that, baby. The TurboGrafx 16 ad. They bought a lot of ads, man, in Marvel Comics at that time. A 2-page spread, Splatterhouse, 2-page spread, Bunk's Adventure.
I'm surprised there's not a zine of all the video game ads from comic books. I mean, you could do a history of video games from the ads that ran through comic books, and they take over early, like you say. I mean, it comes years before this.
From Atari, for
whenever
sure.
they start. And I mean, up to today, you still see that's the video game ads.
You see the line drawing of the pixel art of the Spider-Man and Green Goblin.
Love it. That's in my ad zine.
Is it? Kayfabers, get to it. Make that stuff. And we'll get out of here.
One more. I always like to point out Rick Parker letter on these Spider-Mans because I like his lettering a lot. It's very lively, and he lettered, I think, I think he might have lettered all McFarlane's Spider-Mans except one issue that McFarlane lettered.
Right, yeah. Which we will have under the microscope at some point. But yeah, there's like a real nice bounce to it.
Yeah, it's springy. I like that all these letters had their own identity.
Absolutely. All right, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jim, what's in stores?
Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive from Image Comics, superhero ninja on a skateboard, and the Plain Janes, bunch of outcast high school students that turn to public art as a way to spice up their lives a little bit.
Patreon.com/EdPiscor is where I'm serializing Red Room, my current comics project. $3 will get you the complete archive, but it'll see print in 2021. The Ed Piskor Studio Edition is in stores, but going quickly, so get that while you can. And the X-Men Grand Design Omnibus is sold out at our level. So if you see it in stores, snap it up if you have inklings of wanting to own it.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video to keep up with everything we're doing. You can find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merchandise at the links below this video.
Jimmy, give them one more set of marching orders and we'll be out.
Read more comics.